Grandmother not crying because I know for a fact she wouldn't have wanted me to cry if I cried. Yo, wait. Hey, So, I'd like to thank you all, truly. I'd like to thank you all for coming. I mean, it was crazy walking in here finding Cyril. But anyway, thank you all. You guys have been amazing.
Bro. Good morning to all the old people and not so not. Ladies, outing in balances a lot real quickly. If you don't like a guy, do not come say you'll think about it, or else in that deep black heart of yours.
Hi, darling. Welcome back. So whenever there's a conversation on social media around Ama2000 kids and the 2000s kids, it always starts off as a very civil conversation, but always ends up as a generational war of people trying to prove that who had the best childhood. 90s kids claiming they were the last generation to have the best childhood without the influence of all the forces that are available right now, like social media, and just generally a perception that the 90s was a better time than the 2000s. And then the 2000s rebuttal and saying, no, our generation is the better generation. So on today's video, darlings, I want us to unpack why is there always a fight whenever there's a conversation around 90s kids and the 2K kids. So what I want us to do today, I want us to watch a few clips and find out some of the issues that I want to unpack with you, okay? So we're gonna watch the first video. It's by Mac G. It talks about the idea that the Gen Z kids or Ama2000 look older than millennials or 90s kids. Here's the video.
Apparently, Gen Zs are starting to look older than millennials. Like it's a real thing.
Okay, so millennials, they're born when? Gen Z are born when?
Millennials are 80s.
So we're
80s
millennials.
and 90s, right?
So Gen Zs are starting to look older.
Yeah, listen to this. This is from some podcast. They are, bro. If you look at it, like if you sit down and analyze, no, these guys look and act older than us, bro.
Gen Z is like aging really rapidly.
I mean,
one
they're
girl
fucking chronically online, depresso stresso.
Well, I don't know because we're the depresso stresso gen.
I think they're worse.
This girl, her boyfriend posted a video or something. It's gone viral. People were like, "How old's your girlfriend?" He jokingly was like 42 or whatever, and they're like, "Oh my god, she looks great." I thought she was like 32. She's 22. So she's like, I'm having a crisis. Like, what the fuck? And
Whoa.
She's beautiful. She does look old. If I saw her, I would think that we were the same age.
Dude,
all the streets.
think about it, bro.
I'm thinking about it.
Bro, look at
to...
what's her name? Mitlali. Mitlali looks like she had 3 divorces already, dog.
Isn't she?
I don't know, but she's
96
right now.
So she's a Gen Z. 96 Gen Z.
Cyan Bougie looks like she's had 2 babies already.
Yeah, but those are anomalies, bro. Those are not the average.
Bro, even Cinema Katini.
Those are not the average age mates of her.
So what are you basing it on?
Age mates.
What are you basing it on?
Fast life.
So do you know Uri, Sima and Cyan Bougie are the same age?
But Cyan Bougie, bro.
So you get
my age, like the going out all the time, the drinking, the lifestyle.
Sima drinks, dog. What are you talking about? Sima goes out.
But Cyan Bougie is also just bigger naturally. She's a big person.
But I guess there is that debate because sometimes you find when you hear someone is like, how old is this person? You thought, oh, I'd probably mistake people thinking that we're around the same age, only to find out, no, this girl is like 23 or 22, 25. So yes, that does happen at times. Let's say you have the younger ones who, you probably just look like. But obviously, if it's also that you're looking, maybe because I think maybe the debate could also go to the 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds are taking care of themselves. So the older, so whereas the younger ones are not taking care of themselves, maybe not drinking enough water and not
Also, it's
going to gym.
apparently it's got to do with depression.
Exactly.
They are more
Yeah.
stressed or depressed.
So it's also it's about taking care of yourself,
The first thing I want us to talk about is this. I remember last year when there was a conversation by millennials and Gen Z, whereby a lot of people who were born in the 2000s being perceived as looking older, and millennials claiming that they look younger than the 2K kids. I want us to be careful and not use my information as a generalization, but look at this information more as an overview, a conversation we're having together, okay? So let's talk about the idea that 2000s kids look older than the 90s kids. Firstly, I want us to think about the aesthetics of 2K kids. Like, one thing that I've noticed that is different with kids in the 2000 kids in terms of fashion is that their fashion and style is more polished, which can make someone look older. Like, for example, we have lace fronts, we have makeup tutorials available on YouTube, we have the baddie aesthetic. They tend to do a lot of their fashion and styling in a more sophisticated way or a more adult way in terms of lace fronts, makeup, lashes, heavy contouring, just even the baddie aesthetic, even the lifestyle, which can in turn make them look older in comparison to 90s kids who didn't have much access to makeup tutorials in the 90s. They didn't have much access to makeup tutorials. Lace fronts were not a thing, especially in the early 2000s. Fashion that was worn by teenagers in the 90s, it was literally about Barbie Girl, Mickey Mouse house. I remember even seeing some of the pajamas that some of my older cousins had. Like, it would be something very childish, like Mickey Mouse house, Donald Duck. The clothing was very appropriate for teenagers of the time and children of the time. Whereas with the 2K kids, certain styling and aesthetics can make them look older. And then there's also the discussion that Ama2000 or the 2000s kids act older than they are supposed to be. And there's something I found out. It's not as surface level as to just say that they act older because they don't want to be young. One thing that I've noticed about 2000 kids is that they are exposed more to social issues. They are exposed more to psychology language. They understand, they have access to information that talks about abusive behaviors. They have access to information about the injustices in the world. One thing I've noticed about Gen Z or Ama2K is that they are more aware of social issues because of just access to information. It's not to say that 90s kids are not aware of social issues. They are. Right now, I believe that if 90s kids had access to information right now, like the 2K kids, they would also be very much activist. There was an article that I read that talked about how 2K kids are very much involved in a brand's identity. They want to support brands that are very much have an activist element to them and are aware of social issues. So why do they act older? They act older because they are aware of issues that 90s kids probably were not aware of when they were kids. Like, these are issues that adults normally were involved in, or conversations that were normally available to adults, like social issues, economic issues, financial issues, war, and all those things. I'm not trying to say that 90s kids didn't know anything about the world, but let's be honest, information and the internet is way faster for the 2000s kids, so they are more aware, and there's way more information right now available to 2K kids. Whereas 90s kids were allowed, because of the time, to be children for longer. The economy was a little better in the early 2000s for the 90s kids. They had more opportunity to be children. Parents were earning good money, whereas now people are aware of the social climate. We are aware of unemployment. So a lot of 2000s kids might act mature because of economic reasons. They know that they have to go to work, they have to finish this degree, they have to basically deal with the social issues that they are aware of, with such as economy, social issues, environmental issues. They are so aware, body issues, body image issues. There's so much information available to them. So I don't think they act older because they want to be older, but sometimes having access to information and knowledge does make you more anxious or conscious about everything that's happening around you. And you might start using language that seems a bit older, or you are aware of psychological issues that are happening around us and caused sometimes by our parents. When we look at the topic of technology, 90s kids grew up in a time where obviously certain technological advancements were happening, like CD players, cassettes, Walkmans, iPods. There were a few things that they had access to, but it wasn't a core feature of their lives. Whereas 2000 kids, or the 2Ks, Ama 2K, one thing that I notice is that technology is available and is a facilitator of every facet of their childhood and lives as young adults. Like, if I think about a time and I notice and I read articles, 90s kids, or kids who were kids in the 90s, basically remember a time and reminisce of a time where they didn't have to use technology to connect to people. The technology that they have was probably like CD players, VHS tapes, and they just, if you wanted to see your friend, you couldn't just be like, hey friend, maybe you could use the landline, the telephone at home, but still, cell phones were not common. Most people didn't have cell phones. So to actually be around your friends, you had to actually go there and visit your friends and take a walk and go to your friend's house. Whereas friendships for the 2000 kids are facilitated by social media. They connect with their friends through social media, video calling, whatever you use, WhatsApp, Instagram. And obviously, you can say that, yes, 90s kids and the 2000s kids both had technology. Yes, but the thing is, 90s kids grew up in a time where they remember when technology wasn't as advanced, and they remember the time when technology became a core feature of daily life. Whereas the 2000s kids were raised in a time where technology, social media, cell phones, smartphones were at the rise. So that's some of the key differences. I would say someone would be like, which one do you think is the better childhood? I don't know. That's up to you to decide. But I think there is an element that is missing in the lives of some 2000s kids, especially 2Ks who grew up in the city or urban areas, that we can look at in the 90s. For example, in the 90s, things were just more communal and more communal, whereas now they're more individualistic. What do I mean by more communal? More communal in the sense that people tended to have more physical interaction outside of groove, outside of party spaces. If you wanted to do a school project, you had to go into a library, actually book a book and work with your classmates and do research on a topic. That was more communal. That was more community based. It was not as individualistic as the process of you having to do homework by yourself or use your phone or smartphones. I think some of the beautiful aspects of the 90s was that kids were able to, with the circumstances, they had to socialize more physically. And I think for most human beings, that's something we all need, to socialize in physical space and interact with each other. Human beings require that. It's not to say that 2K kids don't interact in physical spaces, but I'm going to be honest. I haven't seen kids play outside as much. That's something I've noticed that also speaks back to the topic of that, do 2K kids act older? To a degree, yes, because they're always on their phones. I don't see young kids, especially teenagers. I don't know who said that people cannot play when they are teenagers. The 90s kids used to play. Even when you were 15, you would find yourself playing in the streets and being dirty. Like, that is something I find a lot of 90s kids reminisce about, being able to play, being able to be on the streets and get dirty, whereas 2K kids are focused on more indoor stuff or social media, and I understand why. Times have changed, of course. Even when we talk about the social dynamics of 2K kids and how they interact with their parents, one thing that I've noticed is that parents, usually the parents of the 2K kids are the parents of 90s kids as well. And there's something that parents who were strict to their 90s kids give birth to the 2Ks and they're less strict now, they're more liberal. That's something that I've noticed in the social dynamic with 2K kids, is that they have more liberal parenting styles. Like, their parents just, some of the things that they are able to say to adults, like, it's like, okay, whoa, okay. And I'm not saying every 2K kid does that, of course. I know someone's going to be triggered and be like, no, not all 2K kids are like that. And someone's going to be like, not all 90s kids are like that. Yes, I know. We're having a conversation, an overview of trend, an analysis of trend. So it's one of the things that I've noticed is that 90s kids had stricter parents. They had stricter regulations and curfews, whereas 2K kids have more liberal parenting. Even in the schooling system, 90s kids had corporal punishment. So in the school, you do wrong, you get a bad mark, you get hit, you get, I don't know, what's a nice way to put it? But yeah, you get hit. Like, they'll beat you, they'll hit you. It was part of the discipline. And would I say punishment? Yeah, punishment for bad behavior. There was more stricter regulations for bad behavior. Whereas with 2K kids, they don't have, most schools now in South Africa don't have corporal punishment. Would I say I don't want it back? I know some people are like, do you want corporal punishment back? No. I think there's something beautiful about sometimes how aware 2000s kids are. I think there's beautiful elements about the childhood of 90s kids. It's the communal thing. It's the fact that they had to actually be kids for longer. They didn't have to worry about economic issues, financial issues, social justice issues. They were allowed to be kids longer because they were not aware as much. Whereas the 2K kids, some of the also beautiful things about the 2K kids is that they are more aware of toxic behavior. They are more aware of toxic parenting styles. So they are more vocal. Like, we always see the topic where it's like 2000s kids will literally be like, when their mother's shouting, their parents are shouting, like, no, why are you shouting? Why are you shouting? Calm down, calm down. I've noticed that even with my own siblings, they're just more aware of the fact that toxic behavior exists and they're able to call it out. That's not because they are smarter or better than the 90s kids. It's just because they have access to information. There's social media, there's TikTok, psychology speaks, psychology terms. Mental health is some of those things that are hugely available. The vocabulary is hugely available to the 2K kids. If you were a 90s kid and wanted to access that information in the 90s, you had to go to a library and actually open up some kind of psychology textbook or a magazine. So I'm gonna have to disappoint you right now. This video isn't about which generation is better, but it is about figuring out why does this conversation trigger a lot of vitriol and animosity from these two demographics by things simply as just age and which time you were born in. So as I was doing research, I found a few key things that I want to share with you. So the first issue that I've noticed is that obviously, why does the conversations of the 90s and the 2000s trigger so many people? Well, one thing that I've noticed is that usually on social media, when the conversation of 2Ks is mentioned, it's mentioned in the romantic context. It's mentioned in a way that to make a certain group feel insecure about themselves. I've seen tweets, I'm pretty sure you've also seen tweets whereby people will post and say 2K kids are more promiscuous than 90s kids. Where they'll say like, oh, my 90s take time to give it up, whereas the 2Ks are willing to give it up, which is problematic in its own way to generalize an entire demographic, saying that 2K kids are promiscuous or 90s kids are more reserved. Both groups are not a monolith and do not have one narrative, but it's something that I've noticed. So the key issue is they date the same men. So now in the dating pool, 90s and 2K women are competing in a way for the same men. Because sometimes men who were born in the 90s are dating the 2K kids, and to a degree, it does make some women feel insecure. I'm not saying not everyone is threatened by Ama 2K or the 90s. But I've noticed a trend where whenever it's mentioned, it is a bit of a triggering conversation, because I even saw a video recently of this lady who was beating up a school kid because basically I think her man was cheating on her with the 2K. And I'm just like, you could have just fought your man, but that's a story for another day. It's just those triggering conversations whereby some women are realizing that they're competing with the 2Ks for men or male attention, and 2Ks are like this new trendy thing or this new version or this new, for lack of better words, it's always mentioned in negative ways, like 2Ks are more fresh than the 90s. Which brings me back to the next part. This conversation is triggering because it also talks to the objectification of women. Usually whenever I see this conversation, it's usually to just make whenever I see men, not all men, yes, not all of you are bad people, but I usually see that some men like to make older women feel insecure by saying how much better the 2K girlies are just because they don't have a lot of life experience or they are younger in age. There's always conversations about, now you need to get a younger woman because she's more, I guess, fertile, more beautiful. There's always conversations that, which to me, I don't think look good for anyone. They don't look for the 90s women. They don't look good for the 2000s women, because essentially they are objectified as objects, where it's like buying a new phone. It's like, oh, you're the older version. We can change you out for the new version. What happens when the 2Ks get older? Same thing. It's like, it presents itself in a very negative way. And to say, okay, you're older now, we can get a new model. And the 2Ks are like the new model. So for me, it's that thing that I find quite triggering for me. The other issue is also, we are working in the same workplaces. Now, I think now it's just jarring for especially a lot of 90s kids to realize that we're also sharing the same working environment with some of the 2K kids, which can be triggering, because sometimes when you're older, you feel like you should be further in life. But now you're working with 2K kids and you're working and earning the same salary, because yes, let's be honest, the economy and everything is not as amazing as we envisioned it to be when we were kids. The economy, the job market, everything. So yes, there is a degree where you feel shame that I'm older, but I'm competing with people who were born in the 2000s. I want us to talk about the last issue that I think is the reason why this conversation is always triggering, the underlying thing in this entire conversation. The underlying thing is that most people are scared of getting older, men or women. Most people are afraid of getting older because sometimes it's because of how people treat older people in a negative way. People are scared of losing their mobility, losing their beauty, losing their youthful vibrance, losing basically the leverage and social capital that is youth. People are scared of getting older. And I've seen it. There's tweets where people are just scared of being called malume, auntie, or ma by the 2Ks. And I want us to talk about this, but maybe in a different video. I know this wasn't an exhaustive conversation. It's so many layers that I know you guys want me to unpack. But I want to leave you with this message from LL Cool J that really helped me just break down the conversation in a healthy way.
I don't have issues with age. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's all right for people in the hood to think I'm a grown man, because I am. Right. And I conduct myself like a grown man. I'm not out here trying to pretend to be a teenager, and I don't, because it's not necessary. That's not going to make me any cooler. In fact, it'll just make me fake. You know what I mean?
So, darling, I want us to change the narrative and accept that we are human beings, and all of us, whether you're a 2K, you are a 90s or Gen Alpha or whatever, a boomer, eventually everyone is going to age. Getting older is part of the human process, and as much as it's not a comfortable realization to know that you'll get older one day, I think it's poetically tragic and poetically beautiful. It's both to get older. I think it's one of those things that you will eventually have to accept. Getting older is okay. Aging is okay. It's natural. It's time to accept that, yes, there will be younger people. Imagine, even when you're 100, there's going to be younger people. Even when you're 80, there's going to be younger people. You just have to learn to live with the waves and cycles of life. You are only a human being, and it's okay to have insecurities. Aging is beautiful. Aging is scary, but aging is part of being human. So yeah, thank you for watching, darling. And if you watched the video till this part, put a money emoji in the comment section. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.